Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Entrepreneur, how to make more money in your current job while mastering the skills to build your own successful freedom-based business. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Tran, co-creator of Employpreneurs Club, and I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Christine Catogio. Christine is such an amazing woman. She is a woman empowerment coach, a life transition strategist, a speaker, and author. She is also the founder of Rise, and she loves to help women rise above the challenges that life throws them and help guide them into lives they truly love and adore. And her passion is inspiring and empowering women throughout all stages of their life, not just to survive, but to truly thrive through their own personal transition. So, Christine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Shannon.
So I want to start with just, hearing a little bit about how you became a women's empowerment coach. Is this something you've always done, or is this, where you went through your own journey and evolution of a new kind of service?
That's exactly what happened. I had gone through a difficult divorce, and from that point on, it seems that everything I did just transitioned into the next stage. And I was in care management prior to becoming a coach, and I was spending a lot of time with the adult children of aging parents, helping them really try and prioritize their life and get their lives in order while they were dealing with their aging parents. And then I had this big aha that it's something I've always done in my life. I've always been there for other people and counseled them and advised them, and my friends used to come to me for advice all the time. And, after having done a lot of inner work in getting through my own challenges, I realized that it was something I was really innately good at. And so I started helping more and more people, and it's just such a natural fit.
I love it. And tell us a little bit about, what types of services you help women with. Are there particular transitions that you find that they're going through where they need the most help, or is it a particular area of their life?
It really runs the gamut. Obviously we're all going through some transition at some point in our life. So it's everything from empty nest to divorce to just age-related. I get a lot of women who are successful in their life and careers but aren't feeling fulfilled. And so they're looking for more. They're looking for a purpose. They're looking for their next steps. It's like, they've reached a certain plateau financially and career-wise, and they're like, okay, is this all there is? So it really runs the full gamut. It's a lot of women in career transitions just looking to find out something that fulfills them more.
And I love that you mentioned, where someone can be successful but not necessarily feel fulfilled. And
yes.
So what do you find that needs to kind of be, what's the missing link there? Like, what do you often find where people, they're not getting that fulfillment aspect to their work or their life, and then what needs to change?
Well, the key issue that I find with most women, and it's something that I've experienced myself after having raised two beautiful daughters and being married 32 years, was that I spent so much of my life, and I see so many women doing the same thing, doing what was expected. Going through, you go to school, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, and there was like this certain sort of unspoken protocol that we followed and did what everyone expected of us. And then all of a sudden you reach that point in your life where what about me? I've been busy taking care of everyone else, and now I have all these yearnings and things that I've always wanted to do or I've always wanted to accomplish, and dreams that I really want to bring to life that I never had the opportunity to do. And so for many women, it's, they don't necessarily earlier in life don't necessarily understand that they have a purpose other than being, good moms and good daughters and good wives. And then they finally reach that stature where they're like, okay, there's more here. There's more to my life that I'm meant to do and be.
So it sounds like one of the things that you do is that you help women connect to their purpose or their why so that they connect what they are doing with what's important to them. Is that, do I have that right? Okay.
Yeah, and exactly.
Which is so critical. I mean, not just for women, but all of us. Like, all of us can just get caught up in the doing, and really there's no meaning behind it. So
exactly.
Is there a process or a set of questions or a technique that you take? Because this is so critical. I mean, to me, this is the piece that a lot of people need before we get into a bunch of projects or other things like that. This seems like a really good beginning piece for people.
Yes.
So is there a process that you take people through to help them connect with their why, with their sense of purpose?
That's exactly what I do. And in simple terms, I say I help them reawaken, refine, and redesign their life. And so the reawakening is, finding out who they are at their core essence. And that's the premise of RISE, which is an acronym for Reclaim Inner Soul Energy. It's getting back to who we are at our core before life told us who to be. And so we go through a process of that reawakening. What are the things the talents and abilities maybe that have been dormant, or the things we dreamed about that we never brought to life? And so that is a process in itself. And then we go through the refinement, which is releasing what's not working and bringing to life the things that are, and bringing more of what those are into our life, and incorporating all of that, so we start to process only the positive aspects and start letting go of the things that really don't have a purpose in our life. And that can be anything from a job to a relationship to where you live. There's so many different things. I always say clutter is more than just the physical clutter. So we really need to release a lot of that clutter and start to refine our life so that we only have the good in our life. And then the redesign is really putting in place what I call the MAP, which is the Master Action Plan, as to how we want to move forward so we can create the life that we want.
That really sounds like some
process.
Yeah, well, it sounds like some really profound and powerful work. And, you mentioned, I'm just thinking about the decluttering piece. And, maybe that could be, you mentioned like a job or a relationship. And so, what have you found to be the typical fears that come up for people? Because as I've been doing this research, a lot of the experts talk about, one of the things we have to work on is just our fear of change and our fear of stepping out of certain roles. And so what have you found to be the biggest challenges related to that?
Well, probably just as you said, it is the fear of change. But the fear of change is, it's really very broad. In many instances, it's the fear of what things are going to look like if we do make a change. How's our family going to relate to us? How's our spouse going to relate to us? And there, you always see the different memes online, the fear of success and the fear of failure. What happens if I become successful and I can't handle it? Or what happens if I get to a certain point and I don't have the courage to move forward? And of course, there's, the big one is always that fear of failure. What are people going to think if I make a change and I fail? And it's those fears that really hold us back. And as I'm sure you've heard, it's false evidence. It's those little monkey voices in our head that hold us back. So a big part of the work that I do is really working on the self-esteem and the self-confidence issues and breaking through those fears and those monkey issues and developing, what I always say, develop the muscle that's going to help you just keep moving forward and make you stronger.
That is great. And I imagine as you do that, people get connected to what is truly fulfilling to them.
Exactly. And it is, some people have an easier time with it than others. A lot of people are just very resistant. But once they start to see the progress, even if it's baby steps, then they're like, all right, well, I'll try it. That kind of thing. Or, I hear a lot of, oh, well, I've done that before. I've tried that before. Or these little exercises, I did these years ago and they didn't work. And so it's really involves a commitment to want to make a change. And that's a huge factor, because a lot of times if the commitment is there, then it's easier to overcome the fear, because it's that burning desire to change something about your life that can move you through a fear. It's like, I'll give you an example of one time. I'm not a good swimmer, and I have a fear of the water. And so I'm okay in my pool. But when I was on vacation one time with my boyfriend, and we went on a catamaran, and we were going to do scuba diving, and I was like, snorkeling, not even scuba, snorkeling. And I was like, well, I can do this. I've snorkeled from the beach. And then all of a sudden the catamaran stops, and he says, well, we're in 25 feet of water, so we're going to get out here. And I stood there, and I was terrified, because I can't swim. So, and my boyfriend said, you don't have to do this. And I said, no, I'm terrified, but I'm going to do it anyway. Otherwise, I will never overcome the fear. And so I always tell that story, because it's the determination of wanting to overcome the fear to improve something in your life. So that's the commitment and the resolve that people really need if they want to make a change.
I love that story. When you told it, what came to my mind is how that is an example of the quote we often hear, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Exactly. Yep.
And I imagine when you go outside your comfort zone and you're willing to do something like that, that is what increases your sense of confidence and self-esteem that you can handle difficult situations.
Totally. And, I always tell my clients, it's that being uncomfortable means you're growing. And there again, I use a lot of metaphors all the time. And so, one of my favorites is the butterfly. When that caterpillar is in that chrysalis, it's bumping and grinding, trying to get out of there. And it's super uncomfortable, but it can't get out until it's really ready to fly. So you really need to go through that discomfort so you can get to where you need to be.
Okay, Christine, you're saying something, and you've got my light bulb going on here in my mind. Because, no, and I say this because I think this comes up for women, and it's so interesting you're saying it. This is just, what's that called, like serendipity, right?
Uh-huh.
Where there's this urge in all of us, right? And we don't want to rock the boat. We want people to feel comfortable. We want to be comfortable, and yet in order for things to be different, we have to sit in that of oh no, I'm gonna, because no one likes to make themselves or other people uncomfortable. And so, is there a skill that you use to be able to do that?
Oh gosh, there again, I think it goes back to the determination. How badly do you want it? There again. We can walk around with a pebble in our shoe, and after a while, we get used to it. But if you're really not happy with where you are, and you make change in your life, you really want transformation, you really have to take the steps. It's all about taking that action. And, as you well know, if we don't take action, we don't get anywhere. So, I think that's the key element there, why some people can do it and some people can't. It's just a certain fortitude and a certain drive that comes from within.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that part of what you do is, you kind of help people build some of those muscles, people who are ready for that level of transformation, that, sometimes we have to be so comfortable enough that we're willing to kind of make the change.
Exactly.
So, I want to ask you, Christine, because you clearly have, redefined yourself and, learned about business and being an entrepreneur. Just looking back, what have you found are some common mistakes that beginning entrepreneurs make when maybe starting out their business, and what do you feel can be done to kind of avoid or minimize them?
Oh, gosh. Probably the biggest one that I see and that I was guilty of was not asking for help. Having that notion that, we need to do it all ourselves and it's my baby and I'm creating it, and being too proud to ask people to help us or guide us, or not having, the right mentors or coaches or anyone there to bounce things off of, trying to do it all alone. You just can't do it alone. And that's, I think, is the number one mistake that so many of us make, is that, feeling that. And I think a lot of that is, that's the pride and the ego. We finally, commit to making the change, and then it's like, well, I can do this. I don't need anybody's help, and and then one day you wake up and you're like, I can't do this all by myself. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake that so many make. And the other thing, too, I think, is not having, it goes back to the confidence, not having the confidence in our own abilities, thinking that we need to have skills in everything. And, I for one, I'm not a techie person, and I try and do a lot of things on my own, and then I reach that point and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a coach. My expertise is in helping women overcome their challenges and not in doing websites. So I need to bring in the people that are the experts in those kind of things so I can spend time doing what I need to do to help grow my business and to help people.
That is such great advice. And what I love about that advice is it not only applies to, a person who is an employee, someone who is an entrepreneur, but just, the many roles that women have, whether you're a mom or you're caring for parents or something. Like, it's so easy. I'm just thinking of the times where maybe I didn't ask for help when it came to parenting or different things like that. And, it's such good advice to remember to just learn to ask for help. And the other thing is, I guess, what I have found is be open to how the help is given rather than thinking it has to be your way.
Exactly.
That's
a big one.
yeah. When my husband would take my kids to McDonald's, I'm like, oh. And I would say, now, Shannon, he got them something to eat. He got them something to eat. They're fed. And I thought,
that's
okay,
right.
You know what? It's going to be okay. Let's just, move on here.
Yeah. And I think so many women, we have this perfectionism kind of thing going on, like only we can do it right.
Yeah, I have to get off that train.
In some cases, huh?
Yeah. Now, what have you found in, your work with the women you empower and coaching and just in your own life? What have you found like some important characteristics that people need to have to really experience the kind of success that you're describing, where you have a life of fulfillment and purpose, where you're feeling, powerful and you're feeling confident? Like, are there certain character traits that just seem to really promote that kind of well-being?
Well, there's a lot of different, and I think some of it goes back to what I said earlier. It's the commitment to want to do that. So there's a certain amount of fortitude, by all means, because it's challenging and it's not easy. And so some people do, for lack of a better word, wimp out. So, it's like, it's too hard, I can't do this, and so I'll just go back to doing what I was doing before. So there is a certain amount of fortitude, and I want to say courage, because it's not easy making change. You know, it really isn't. So there's a certain amount of courage, and of course there's that desire to improve something about your life, the desire to, and knowing that you're capable. We're all capable, and you know that's a key factor that so many women forget, is that we were given talents and abilities to utilize. And so if we get the idea or thoughts for anything, whether it be business or something talent-wise or whatever, that, you know, those are innate things we're given to utilize. And so it's really up to us to do what we need to do to bring them to life and utilize them. And we weren't given them to just sit them dormant. So there's a certain mentality that goes with understanding that, and not everybody gets it. And I don't know that there's a word to describe what that is, but it's either you get it or you don't. It's really that simple.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's great advice. And the next thing I want to ask, because you know, you mentioned earlier just about, you know, how a lot of women get caught up in, and you know, men too, get caught up in doing what's expected of us. Not necessarily what we want to do or what might even be good for us, but just what's expected. And, you know, and especially people nowadays, we have so many roles. So what have you found to be really helpful in people being able to balance it all? Like, you know, because what I often see are people who, they feel overworked, they feel exhausted, they feel burned out. You know, they're so caught up in pleasing people that maybe they agree to things they don't want to do. So have you come across this a lot in your empowerment coaching? And if so, what have you found really helpful to help people get past that?
Okay, well, I, for one, was always guilty of that. I never knew how to say no. And I never raised my hand in school except when they asked if somebody could help with something. So I'm guilty as charged. And I think it's a natural thing, you know, because of the nature of who we are, wanting to help and wanting to do for others. I mean, as women in particular, you know, it's the nature of the beast to do that. But if we don't take the time to take care of ourselves, we can't help anyone else. And I think that's, you know, probably something I try and get through to my clients so much, is that we need to put ourselves on the calendar. We need to, you know, pencil in our gym time or our time for yoga or whatever it is that we need to get us centered. Because if we don't make the time to remove ourselves from everybody coming at us and the phone dinging and, you know, the emails coming through and the technology, which is nonstop these days, if we don't remove ourselves from that, we get caught in this whirlwind that, you know, the whole magnetism of electronics, I think, has done something to us energetically because it makes us feel wired. And so we really need to remove ourselves from that and make that time to nurture ourselves and, you know, shut the phone off or whatever it may be, or go for a walk, or if you're feeling stressful, you know, shut everything down and take a half hour for yourself. And make time for the people and things that are important, because when we can't be in the present with those people, then we are missing out on the most important things in life. And if we don't nurture ourselves with those important things, nothing else matters. And so, you know, we can be the workaholics, we can do all of that, but it doesn't serve us. The things that serve us are the things that are really important. And so we really need to find that time for the self-care and the people and things that are important.
Yeah, so knowing your priorities and then
Totally.
and living by them. I love that, and I love the me time. It reminded me of the other day. I don't watch TV very often, but it just so happened TV was on, and there was this commercial of this husband, and I guess the internet wasn't working. He was like, and then it showed 10 minutes without the internet, and him was like, oh my gosh, they're on the floor, 20 minutes without, and then in the last, he was like, now 25 minutes, and he has, that gun that you shoot, like for SOS, where you shoot it in the air.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, have we gotten to that point where we can't go 25 minutes without our phones or the internet,
Isn't it the truth, though?
So I love that you say that, like, just unplug for a little bit.
Yeah.
I know sometimes I need to be reminded about that because I can get so much into the technology and it can really take you away from being present. So it's almost like you have to practice being present to really have that as a discipline. Otherwise, it's so easy to, get caught in your phone and just pay attention to your phone when you're having dinner or out somewhere beautiful and you're not enjoying it because you're so caught up in the phone.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, too, what a lot of us don't do, especially in business, is we don't set boundaries. We feel like we always have to be available for people. And, and so it's you can be out doing something nice with someone and it's a business phone call, so I need to take it. And, you need to kind of train, I hate to use that word, but train your clients that, this is your day, you have a work day, these are the hours you're available, and after that you're on personal time. So unless it's an emergency, I won't pick up the phone in the evening, or I won't pick up the phone on a Sunday, or whatever the case may be, and I think we need to set those boundaries instead of always being available to everyone, because there is no one who is that important that they can't set that personal time aside for themselves and, get back to their client on something at another time. There again, unless it's, it's critical, but for the most part, we need to learn to set those boundaries.
That is such great advice. I love it. And, I have found for sure this has been a big struggle for people. And you're right, it is about retraining, and just educating people. And then it's one thing to have a boundary, but then we have to be responsible to stick to it and enforce it.
Yes, definitely. It's like I was having this conversation with my brother this morning about exactly that. And I said, when I go to church on Sunday, the phone stays in the car because I don't want to be disrupted during church. And so if somebody can't get a hold of me, well, I'll call them when I come out of church. So the way, we can set times aside for certain things like that, we have to be able to do that for other things in our life, whether it be family time or whatever the case may be. We need to, be able to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I know we just have a few moments left, and I want to ask one more question and then give people an opportunity to get to know how to reach out to you. And it's related to this issue of boundaries and setting, time to ourselves and our commitments. Is there a certain practice that you would suggest to someone who they want to perform at a high level? They want to do well professionally and still have a balanced life so they feel successful at home and work?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm very big on, there again, it goes back to priorities and organizing your time. I'm very big on scheduling. I have certain days where I do my client calls, and then I have other days where I do my administrative work. And so my time is very scheduled out. And I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. The same way you schedule in, if you need to go to your child's school for something, it needs to go on the calendar the same way. And, just block it out. That's my personal time. So I think it's really just learning to set the boundaries, set priorities, and take control of, your own life instead of being or allowing yourself to be, oh gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? To be influenced by all the outside influences, whether it be shiny objects or other people or whatever the case may be, but learn to kind of just take control for ourselves and not be so influenced by what we think others may want from us or expect of us. And it's a little difficult to do, but it's really, once you do it, there again, once you practice it, and make the time for the self-care, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't function for anyone else.
That is so true. I heard, it reminds me, I heard someone say something like, an empty well can't give anyone water, something to that effect, right? So if we reach the point of depletion, we're not really serving anyone.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Christine, for all of your insights and wisdom and just great practical tips on what people can even just do right now to make, big improvements in their life. If someone wants to learn more about you, or, I know you have this amazing retreat in Tuscany coming up, so can you tell us a little bit about, what you're up to and how people can reach out to you if they'd like to have more support in working through their transitions and, really helping with their balance and helping them kind of sort out all the roles that they have in their life?
Yes, definitely. I am on Facebook, Christine Cottagio, and I'll spell that Catoggio, and it's also my website, ChristineCottagio.com, and I can be reached on either one of those or by email at ccottagio@msn.com.
Great. Christine Cottagio, thank you so much for joining us today on Unleash Your Inner Entrepreneur, How to Make More Money in Your Current Job While Mastering the Skills to Build Your Own Successful Freedom-Based Business. We have learned so much from you and really appreciate all the great insights and wisdom that you gave us today.
Thank you, Shannon. My pleasure.
And thank you to our audience for joining us as well.